I have been lecturing and informing the public about my past since about, I would say, the beginning of the 70s, when I started working as a teacher at the University of North Carolina in Charlotte. And I've started lecturing mostly to high school students, college students, who of course were young enough not to really know very much about it, because unfortunately the instructions of history in American high schools are not the best as far as European history is concerned. But then the things that really astonished me many times was that I would lecture in clubs and in organizations and churches to older people, people not quite my age, of course, because nobody is that old, but people in their mid-60s, in their 70s, who had absolutely no idea, professed to only know the word Holocaust because it has been used and has been used for the strangest reasons in many advertising or publicity uses, but who actually had no idea of the extent of the horrors of the Holocaust and of the complicity of the free world in letting it happen, in closing their eyes, in using the excuse, oh, those are just horror stories like in World War I about the Belgian stories, which were at that time the stories that the Germans speared Belgian babies on their bayonets. So it was said, oh, those are horror stories. Well, who can believe that? As a matter of fact, it went to the point that when a Polish envoy by the name of Jan Karski went to Churchill as well as Roosevelt as well as Brandeis in America, and every one of them said, oh, that can't be possible. This is a civilized nation after all. Things like that don't happen. And I think the thing that mostly struck me after the war, and I said diminished my respect for Roosevelt, was that Franklin D. Roosevelt said to Jan Karski, Mr. Karski, this sounds rather impossible, but if it happens to be true, the first thing we have to do is win the war, and then we can take care and see what happens to the Jews. And to me that sounded, from someone who knew very well what was going on, as we know now, sounded heartless and superficial. People didn't want to know at the time, and even today, people might not want to know. It disturbs their equilibrium of life, their well-assorted existence. But at times, I don't feel that I want to be vindictive, but I feel as if it is necessary to open people's eyes to what human beings, considered so civilized human beings, were capable of under their eyes, and they ignored the existence. I shall never forget that when we were liberated, and the young GI who had looked at us and had told us to get back where we came from, and was told that we could not go back because we had come from an extermination camp, looked at us and said, what the hell is an extermination camp? And I had to think there was this young soldier who probably was in his 20s or so, who had been serving for at least 2 years in an army that was determined to liberate the oppressed people of Europe, and he did not know who the most oppressed people were.